Today's video covers dismantling and servicing the Suntour XCM32 forks off Fraser's bike. So first thing we have to do is take the caps off the top of the forks. Then we're going to undo the bolts down here and pull the bolts out and pull the forks apart. You need a special tool, and that is going to grip onto the teeth up here. Get this one. Got to be very careful. These are a plastic thing. You just got to be very gentle to take them off. Okay, that's the first one. We'll just keep these in exactly the same order we take them out. Okay, this side came off easily. This side, the other side's got a lock lever, a lockout lever. So it locks the forks out so they don't bounce up and down. You've got to remove the cap, which is just a lever. It's just pressed on. So you just gently get the screwdriver underneath it and just gently remove it, just like that. So you get to the spanner and... Okay, these are very, very tight. This one shouldn't be, someone's just over tightened it. So what we're going to do is just gently use a rubber mallet to try and coax it to undo. We've got to make sure we don't strip it, or this doesn't come off like that when we're turning, because these plastic lugs are very delicate. I'd say there's probably sand or something has got into the thread. So now we've got the tops off, we'll just push this up here and expose the springs.
Those springs are looking good.
So it looks like we've got one spring on one side and a preload or a rebound on the other side. Okay, that's got to come out. Right, now we've got that. We undo the bottom. You're seeing a little video.
I am too.
We undo the bottom. There's a 10 mils there and probably a 5 mil hex on the other side. We'll undo those slightly. We'll tap them so that the bolt that's in here will come loose, and then we will undo them and pull the top part out. Okay, let's start with the this side here. This is a 5 mil hex. I like it's too tight. So we'll just undo those, bring them out a little bit, so we've got a bit of purchase on them. And we'll just tap it with the we don't want to damage it at all. We just want to tap it to loosen it. No, this just came out of there, okay?
I've got to go get it.
Okay, that should have loosened it a bit. We'll do the same on the other side with a 10 mil top. Okay, let's roll that out. And again, we'll just give it a tap to loosen the bolt inside. Okay, we're taking the hex bolt out of the bottom of this one. We'll take the 10 mil nut off the bottom of this one. Noting that there's a little cone flange that goes into the bottom of the spring. But it's not going to be that easy because of this preload.
Not.
Whoa, okay. There we go. Now it's apart. Now we need to make sure that we understand that on here there's a plastic cap, and you can see what the problem is. It's got sand and grit all through the bottom. This is why it's not working properly. So it's got a plastic cup here, which is just should theoretically just come off, but looks like there's another bolt to hold that in place to come off. So these are slightly different from the one we've seen before. It's all right, it's off. Yes, it is. Okay, that cap's off now. That goes there.
So we have to change the oil and stuff in it then.
And this will come out the top. Okay, we're just going to get a flathead screwdriver and gently lever the fork seals out. We just don't want to damage the bore or the seating at all, so just got to be very careful in getting them out.
I can't damage the seat as well.
Okay, that pops out. Look at that. Metal parts at the top, the thin parts at the top, the thick parts at the bottom, and the bottom has got a hollow bit, assuming the same seals. Okay.
After you've cleaned everything up and put the degreaser on it and dried it for a day, then you can use some 600 wet and dry sandpaper to get some rust off around here. Also, make sure not to go too hard around where the seal will sit or it will not work. After the inner fork, with the springs, you can just use some wet dry 320 grip sandpaper just to get this rust on the top around off here.
Just to make it smoother.
Just to make it smoother.
First step, we're going to reassemble. We've got it all cleaned up, and there's a bit of rust, but that's just the way it is. So the first thing to do is put the fork seals back in. So brand new fork seals, 32 mils, and because this is a bit damaged around in here, we're going to put a really thin layer of the grease, like really thin.
Show the grease.
Just to help the seal to go in.
What are you using?
We're using the silicone light grease, specifically for bike forks. Okay. The seals will just push in. The metal bit goes at the top. You'll see that the thicker bit has got ribbing on it. That is what goes into the bike like this. So when you're putting these down with a screwdriver, you've got to make sure the metal surround of the top bit doesn't keep popping up. Okay, that one's in. Now we'll just really gently, this upright, yep. Have the screwdriver like that, and we're just going to really gently, in some places, tap it. Normally use a socket, but to get a socket to do these properly, you need a 34 to 35. Okay, now that they're seated properly, now we grease the inside of the seal so the forks go in there much more easily. Okay, that's that ready to go. Okay, we have the fork seals in the outers. Now we're going to rebuild the inners. So what we need to do is grease the inner bits, not the spring, but the bottom inner bit. Drop it down in, put the cap on, and put the rubber washer on first and install it that way. And we'll install this thing, a bit of grease on there as well, and drop it down. So that's the next step. So nice layer of grease on all this. Don't be sparing at all because you want this all nicely greased up as you're sitting on it. So these are the forks here.
Grease the fork.
The left-hand side of the bike as you sit on is that one because that's the front of the bike this way. Drop that down. There she goes. Now I need to put the rubber seal on.
Didn't that have to go in before you put like...
Nope.
Okay.
So that goes on here. And the plastic cap. I'll just put that on there as well. And and that'll just sit down into the main part of the fork. Now this piston here, we'll just put a bit of grease on to make it easier to get it down in through the fork. It doesn't actually need to be greased, it's not a moving part because it's just hydraulic piston. That just slides into the other side, the right hand side, like that. Okay, next step is to put the inners through the outer sleeve. So I'll just put a bit of grease on, not too much, on these, especially this part down here on the left hand side because it's all rusty. So we want it to slide nice and easily into the inners, the outers. So we'll just make sure that's all nicely greased up and doesn't bind going in because that'd be really difficult. And you make sure you've got the correct orientation. The front of the bike has the forks forward and that sits like that at the front. So you've got to slide these
There's a little arch
into this. The arch is at the front. And they're in like that. So now it's in, we've just got to pull the pistons out through the bottom. So you can just see it poking through. We'll just try and get it a bit further down. As far as it goes. Okay. So there it's back together.